Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys from first on our agenda. We can go around and do introductions real quick. I'm Al Chatonis, Chair of the Advisory Board for Parks and Rec.
Jim Lindquist.
Ellen Chisholm. Thank you, Jim.
Just Director of Parks.
Nick Glenn, I'm Recreation Director.
Here, Ron, Parks and Advisory Board member.
I'm Nikki Stankampiano. I'm just here to support my dad, Brian. And I'm Sarah Stankampiano with them.
Co-founder of Dearborn Arena. I'm Brian Stankampiano. I'll be leading the presentation. I'll tell more about the core team in a moment here. Right on the core team.
All right. Well, I think you gentlemen will be first. We'll skip minutes for now. We'll turn it over to you.
Oh, okay, sure. Great.
We got some of your presentation in advance, but hopefully, folks could look at it. So I know we gave you some time in today's meeting, so don't feel like you have to go in excruciating detail on every single slide. Because I think we'll have a pretty good discussion. That'll be a good amount of time for Q&A and discussion.
Wonderful. I'll move through it very quickly. Just hit some of the highlights. What I'd like to do first, if it's all right, is just kind of frame a little bit of a background. I saw on the agenda that it says skating rink, I think is the agenda item, right? Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of it. But I'd like to kick it off with just a brief video, just to set the stage on the slightly broader topic. 2 minutes. So Rink Raiders production, the Rink Raiders. We've named ourselves the Rink Raiders for planning to.
What's more important than your education? Sushi.
YouTube is taking over with commercials. Sorry about that. Okay. The rink graders court planning team. The reason we're here, December 26th, day after Christmas, my son and I are skating in our backyard rink. I've had a backyard rink in Fairport for 28 years now. We're skating in our backyard rink and this lady walks down the street and says, wow, this is cool. It's Emily Mishler, the Village of Fairport trustee. We get talking, said, you want to skate? I invited her in, there were skates, I provide skates, almost everything for anybody that wants to skate. And she's having a riot. Next morning, she puts out a Facebook post, oh my gosh, this brought back so many memories of Highland Park, we gotta bring skating back to Fairport. She called me up, said, let's talk about it. I said, sure, I'm addicted to making ice and making people happy with skates on and teaching them how to play hockey and skate. So we got together, she said, I want to introduce you to some friends. Nancy Regas, Pam Renfro, Emily Mishler, and I meet in early January, we start brainstorming, what if we brought outdoor ice back? No, what if we had a carnival, what are other cities and towns do? So what we have for you today is Art is here as well, and the interesting thing about Art, his dad was the one who started Powder Park and watered Powder Park Ice Rink for many years. So Art, maybe just tell a little bit more about your history and what you do and part of our core team.
It's actually tough for me because I lived at Powder Park. I played hockey as a little kid, got dropped off at Powder Park after a 6 o'clock in the morning Lions Club game in the city. I get dropped off at 7:30, I wouldn't leave the ice till 11 at night. My parents wanted me to eat, they brought me food. And my dad would finish the day after work and he'd come to the ice and we would fill the rink, flood the rink. And we did that every single night that you got the weather. I mean, it was one of those things, and Brian knows it as well as anybody, when you get the weather, you go. Because, we all know we don't get the perfect weather for ice. And there's a lot more that goes into it than just putting some water down. So I lived at that rink, brings back a ton of memories. I taught my wife how to skate on that rink in 7th grade. So it's just special to me. But what I do now, I'm retired and I have an inner city organization called Rocky 6. And we touch 150 kids every year. It's a lacrosse mentoring program. And, so I live for kids and give them the opportunities. One of the 6 E's in Rocky 6 is exposure. And this is what you need to do. You need to expose them to this type of, it's not just skating, it's a rink, it's a community, meeting your wife in 7th grade, stealing someone's hat, skating down, having some hot chocolate when you're freezing. It's a lifestyle to me, and I know it's a lifestyle.
Thank you. Art was just featured on the news a week or so ago. He won a special award for what he's done with his Rocky 6 community and the gifts he's given to so many kids. So needless to say, I'm thrilled to have Art on our core planning team. I'm also thrilled to have my wife, co-founder of Dearborn Arena, more about Dearborn Arena in a minute. And then Steve Mondron, my daughter's in town for the week and she's kind of the chief idea officer behind a lot of the things we do. So even though she lives in Columbus, Ohio, she'll be my AI consultant and, project management consultant. She's really incredible thought leadership. So this is your core team. Now we've been working for the last 90, 120 days saying, what do other towns do? This is more than skating. What if we brought a winter carnival to Fairport? How can we increase tourism? And how do we go about getting grants? So that's what tonight's all about, is share with you a little bit more detail on what we've been up to. Oops. So what we hope to accomplish, the desired outcomes, is we want to shape something special together. We have lots of great ideas. We think we got a lot of great ideas, but they get better when we get in front of people like you. You guys eat, drink, and sleep parks and recreation. They're gonna have great ideas. You know what's happening across the nation. We don't know everything that's happening. We've done some benchmarking, don't get me wrong. We've done a lot of benchmarking, but not nowhere near as much as you. So we want to share a preliminary vision that you're going to improve of how we can expand recreation and tourism in Fairport and Carrington. Special thanks to Kieran Hanna and Jeff Nutty for giving us this opportunity. We presented to them, I guess, back in April 6, 2 months ago, maybe a couple months ago, and talked about it. So from after tonight, we want to incorporate your ideas and feedback. We'd love your approval to begin the initiative. begin is to be determined. Do we begin with a skating rink, do we begin with a carnival, what do we do? We're scheduled to present to the town board on July 9th. So that's kind of the order of business. By the way, Jane, nice to have you. And this is Jeff Nutting, the leader of Parks and Recreation, for those that don't know Jeff. Okay, so why does this matter to us? We want to reconnect the beloved tradition. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes when I think about the memories associated with backyard hockey and skating. We want to create more reasons to get out in the winter. Fairport's an incredible destination, as we all know, especially in the summer. There's all kinds of things going on this summer. I haven't got the data yet, but I suspect our tourism revenue is a fraction from November through April, is a fraction of what it is in April through August, or May through August. We want to support local business and tourism, so obviously Nancy Riggs and Pam Renfro, the Fairport Parenting Partnership, have been instrumental in coaching us and guiding us. And we want to strengthen that community pride. But the best thing in a community, it's not things that are built for us, it's built by us, and that's what's hidden behind the little thing there. So they're built by us. We're building this together. Not only is this core team contributed, but there's probably been a couple hundred Fairport Parenting residents that have contributed ID and buying. 100 people registered for our Zoom meeting. I probably got an email list of about 300 people now that are very interested in this initiative. So who's Dearborn Arena? Has anybody driven down 250 in the winter on their way to Home Depot and saw a skating rink in the backyard off of Mosley Road? 250. That was Stan Campiano rink number 2, Dearborn Arena, right? That's Mosley Road 250. So most people know me as the guy who's got the backyard rink in Fairport. This was the first rink on Kaywood Lane. Dan Sadowski tells people, he asked me if this is build a backyard skating rink. He didn't tell me he was going to build Joe Louis Arena. And then we moved out of here and we had to do something with the rink. Glenn Collins at Village Sports was kind enough to give us a free lease for a couple of years to provide skating to the Fairport community. Last but not least, we're now downsized. And we live on Cole Street, a very small rink, and that's where Emily Mishler skated and met me. So to say that I'm passionate about backyard rinks and have a fair amount of experience in making ice under difficult weather conditions would probably be a fair understatement. This is the rink we built at Village Sports. So imagine something like that as a potential rink. And I also have a YouTube channel devoted to teaching people how to build backyard rinks more effectively, get more ice time, or publish videos, because I'm pretty addicted to helping people. And the reason I'm addicted to helping people do this, there's been so many gifts in the last 28 years of people that have skated in our backyard, in our family backyard, and the memories have been incredible and countless precious memories. And that's really what it's all about. Winter fun is about memories. So that's just a little bit of background on the passion between Art and I. What that means to you on this core team is Jeff's team doesn't have to worry about how do you maximize available skating days when the weather is lousy in the Fairport winter. Right, because we're trying to make natural ice in the short term. Broader than an ice skating rink. We started doing benchmarking. So I'll just go around the clock here. Some of you may have seen this. Has anybody clicked on any of these images yet or watched any of the videos that are embedded in here? Jim, what struck out of you, Jim, when you watched the video? Which one?
Is it Saranac Lake?
Saranac Lake? Yeah. So Saranac Lake is the longest winter carnival in the country since 1897. I'll show you a brief video. Did anybody else do any clicking around on these images?
I did, I just had a lot of user.
Oh, did you really? I hope it wasn't my PowerPoint. I thought I did it right. But what you're gonna see here.
I was gonna say you did something wrong until Jim said he could. He something in your
This is Canal Side in Buffalo. This is Rideau in Ottawa, the Rideau Canal in Ottawa. The winter, has anybody been to Winter Rouge Carnival in Ottawa? It's been absolutely incredible, 2 weeks carnival. We're gonna talk a little bit more about Toledo, what they're doing in Toledo. Keep in mind, Toledo is south of us geographically, from a weather perspective. Lake George Winter Carnival. Skating trail in Quebec. They actually have what do you call our trails that you manage? Crescent Trail. Imagine the Crescent Trail with ice. That's what they do in Quebec. They got ice going through their Crescent Trail, so it's it's incredible.
We get ice.
A little dangerous on the hills, but it's pretty creative. So and then USA Pond Hockey. Some of you may remember, how many of you remember when we did pond hockey on the canal?
Yeah.
Right, I can't tell you how many you'd say, wow, that was so much fun, I missed that, I missed that. So this is all potential, right, all part of the vision. Let's talk about Saranac Lake for a moment, because this is, I'm sure you guys do benchmarking when you go visit other towns and parks and recreation sites, right? So we'll learn what they're doing. Well, that's what we would want to do more of, should you guys like what you hear tonight. So let's see here, here we go. Oops, wrong one. Move this out of the way. That frozen? Oops.
Hang right here.
Yeah. Okay, we'll try that again. So that's Saranac Lake. And then, oh, we got a blank on his name. Our neighbor, on the town planning board,
Adam?
Adam Banowski. So I'm sure many of you know Adam Banowski, right? So he's a friend of ours, his son skates in our Rowan skates in our backyard. We told him about this and he goes, have you heard about the river? I said, the river? No. He goes, Toledo's done some really cool stuff. They've created this thing called a ribbon as a skating rink. Turns out my best friend, college roommate in the world, also lives in Toledo. And I said, have you heard about the ribbon? So he sends me this link. So Toledo has invested, Metro Parks has invested in this skating ribbon, roller skating in the summer, ice skating in the winter. You gotta check these videos out. You know, it would take too much time to go into detail. This is a news clip about more about it. But what I learned about it, so this is the ribbon, right? This is the main skating area, chalets where people hang out, fire pits, food, drink, you know, entertainment. It opened in June 2023, it had over 1 million visitors in less than 2 years. So that's why when we say this is more than skating, we're trying to bring winter fun and recreation in Fairport. And then the opportunity could be very significant for us. So imagine, you know, a winter tradition that brings our entire community together in Fairport. Whether it's 2 weeks long, a week long, 3 days long, start small, build big, but something that really defines Fairport, not unlike Canal Days and or the Fairport Music Festival does in the summer. What can we do in the winter where people live, you gotta go to Fairport in the winter, like people go to Ottawa for winter. But signature event, are celebrating our Canal Town charm, right? We're gonna draw people in. We like the idea of a pond hockey tournament. You saw some images there, USA Pond Hockey has championships all over the place. Our preliminary vision is a pond hockey tournament, which could also leverage some skating that you could be pretty much guaranteed to have ice. And in the real cold winters, late January, early February, it spills over to the canal. That's why we're suggesting the skate park adjacent to the canal would be the logical place to have a winter carnival. In the real cold months, you spill over to the canal, you can put 10, 15 rinks on the canal like we used to do. So scalable growth, regional economic impact. Have we done some preliminary economic impact models? Yes, but I mean, I'm insulting you if I put it in front of you now, because it's too premature. But it's big. It's big when you bring in tourism dollars. So there's lots of benchmarks out there. Let me stop there. Does anybody have questions about the benchmarks or any comments? If anybody else clicked on the videos?
Is the ribbon, is that refrigerated?
Yes, that's refrigerated. Yeah. Yeah, definitely refrigerated. And the vision for clearly, we would prefer to have a refrigerated rink. Well, so we had the expo, back at the junction rink. That was a couple $100,000 back in the, I think mid-80s. If you're gonna go into refrigerated rink, it's a minimum of $500,000. And again, we'd insult you to come in here and say, we think you should invest $500,000. So the coaching that I've received from Nancy Regis and team is, let's start small, let's demonstrate there's enough demand for skating, let's start with the natural ice. Is there some risk with natural ice? Yes, there's some risk with natural ice in terms of how available it's gonna be. But when you think about Art Albert and Brian St. without patting myself on the back too much and us on the back too much. Most people fail with backyard rinks because they don't understand how important level is, how important sun reduction and shade is. So there are ways to maximize outdoor ice in the winter. With a little extra engineering, a little experience, you can actually get a lot of skating days in the winter. Now, last year was a great winter. We had 70 skating days last year, which is a lot of skating days. So, phase one, what we're suggesting, what we're recommending is a natural ice rink in the skate park. I'll give you more details. Obviously, it's walkable to the village. Look and feel similar to, the historical Dearborn Arena. Short boards, 2 feet high, white, painted, potentially advertising, but attractive looking, not exposed wood, not ugly wood. So, and then for more history about Dearborn Arena, if you, that's in there as well in terms of over the years, it's been featured on the news many times. So this is your skate park currently, right? So just to orient us, right? Here's the skate park, here's Fairport Road, here's the parking lot, tennis courts, right? Canal. Here's the canal here, right? So what we stumbled across this is like, where could we find a good location? So wow, this is a no-brainer. It's adjacent to the canal. It's already named the skate park. The tennis courts aren't utilized in the winter. There happen to be a lot of people put ice rinks on top of tennis courts in the winter. So the preliminary vision is, by the way, you got infrastructure, you got restrooms, changing area. Most important, access to water, access to electricity, there's lights, there's fences, there's security. It was a dream come true when I saw it anyhow. Long term, maybe a featured rink with a pavilion on the building, maybe, right? Bigger rink, assuming we get successful. But in the short term, it's a small rink to start with, 112 by 80, 110 by 80 on the tennis courts. A little bit more detail here. This is blown up on the tennis courts. So imagine tennis court 1 and 2, and Jeff has been there, obviously, and Chris has been there to see it, as well as Karen. Imagine 1 and 2 being consumed by about 80% of 2 tennis courts are consumed with the skating. Obviously, we'd have rubber mat ways for people would change, put skates on here, food trucks, hot chocolate, fire pits, imagine the amenities, fenced in, security camera. Who will build, maintain, and manage? So, we would teach Jeff's team how to do it, or if they can't do it, they could outsource it to us or someone else to do it. But we put together a bill of materials list. As I mentioned, between Art and I and other volunteers, we would optimize the utilization. Because it's gotta be perfectly level, we had insulation underneath to protect the tennis courts from any damage and make certain we get maximum available ice. Obviously, we'd offer fire pits, we'd offer skate fennel. We'd offer figure skating as well as hockey, obviously be designed to do both. I'm assuming we would leverage the Town of Harrington website for promoting, the Parks and Recreation site promoting activities, learn to skate activities, figure skating specials, curling, broom ball. It's not just hockey and skating, broom ball's a big deal. And when we used to do birthday parties at the Dearborn Arena we had in Village Sports. And one of the most famous birthday parties, the weather didn't cooperate. The kids were in boots. They had a riot. They couldn't skate because it would have dug up the ice, but they had a riot in boots. So, you can get a lot out of an area to have fun in. Then we had a community Zoom meeting. I mentioned 100 people signed up for the Zoom meeting. About 35 actually finally attended. A lot of people signed up for the recorded video. And I mentioned the 300-person email list I have, but would you support and/or attend a future Winter Carnival in Fairport? 90-1 kind of thing, 25-1. Do you support the addition of outdoor skating in Pennington Park in the winter of 2025? pretty unanimous as well. Everybody felt pretty strongly about that. Skating memories, all the voice of the community is captured in these slides as well. If you click on them, you can see exactly what people said. You see some of the quotes on the right. Sorry about getting out of the way. The amount of sentiment around Powder Park, I mean, because here I was almost choking up, I can tell. The sentiment around Powder Park is amazing. Next. And the other interesting thing was, we asked people, 25 out of 25 answered this question: would you like to contribute to our initiative moving forward? 15 said I'll volunteer. 5 said I'll share ideas, sponsor. Only one person said they're not interested. Everybody wants to help. I can't tell you how many people are sending me emails. What can I do? What can I do? Can I give you money? Can I donate? We already got the 501c3 set up, right, as part of the Fairport Parenting Partnership. So that's the quick summary. I obviously could have gone a lot deeper, but I wanted to, give you the quick highlights. Should you agree that it makes sense? And again, you guys are the ones, you have to say you like it or not, and thick skin knows an acceptable answer, hopefully you're gonna like it, but. We want to incorporate your feedback. Karen's invited us to July 9th meeting. And the next step would be, assuming the top, you guys in the town board like it, think there's a future in it, we need to expand this core planning team. We need to get some grant writers. There's an Erie Canal Tourism Infrastructure and Events grant out there. I sat through a Zoom meeting a couple of weeks ago. The I Love New York, Market New York grant program, there's money available as well. And this fits like a glove in terms of the vision, because they're trying to promote tourism in New York. So there's money out there. Obviously, Jen Lunsford helped with the skate park. We haven't approached Jen Lunsford yet, but it would be a no-brainer to do that. And the number of sponsors and volunteers, I think would be pretty significant. The one thing I will say, is this the right number? Let's see here, 2, 3, enter. 2, 1, enter. 2, 2. 2, 3, wrong one. There you go. One thing I will say about this community, Rochester is becoming pretty close to Buffalo in terms of its hockey mania and skating mania. I mean, Buffalo's in a different world, but Rochester's catching up. It's a big hockey community. This is 300 families that have contributed to Dearborn Arena over the years, but more importantly, sponsors and volunteers. There's plenty of people that want to jump behind this initiative and bring back winter tourism and bring back skating. So I'll leave it on that, and we'll go back to your feedback and thoughts, questions.
I mean, Jeff, do you wanna? How do you wanna transition to the discussion? Is there anything before? Tonight that you as your the leadership team and the best of discuss, broadly speaking, or topics, or do you wanna go around the table for initial reaction?
I think, why don't we start around the table and we can evolve, and if any questions pertain to some of our research, we can share it. If there's anything that's not covered, then we can add that, I suppose.
All right, guys, I'll look to Mr. Fioravante down there. You let.
Hey, I took the botching, you took the
You let us down. You let us down.
Italians don't skate except for this guy. The northern Italians, all right? So, no, I mean, obviously some things come to mind that, draw concerns. I think you've touched on some of those things, the number of days. One thing that's, I guess, being on the board for 13, 14 years, I do recall early on that we had some cooperation with the village on the rink that was at Knapp Park, right, in that parking lot.
Right.
I know there's a lot of technical glitches with the equipment, and that was a fairly small rink. So, I mean, I think it's probably worth revisiting. I mean, you learn from mistakes. It's revisiting, how is that? And I grew up in East Rochester. I don't remember the Potter Park rink that you've been referring to.
About the rink in the Village Junction?
Yeah, Village Junction. That I don't know how many years it was up, but I do remember going there. I remember taking the kids there once, bringing the skates at an RV bike. But so that was one maybe case study before moving forward to kind of figure out what were the pros and cons of that, what was the usage. I do recall, I think there was concerns about, you'd have some kids down there with their hockey sticks and some people with families, how do you keep those things separate, for safety reasons? I know my kids have gone down to the one at Manhattan Square Park. I think they kind of do that as a carnival and shops and things like that. I don't know a lot about it because I haven't personally been there, but I know when the kids have come back, winter break from school, that they meet their friends down there. So I don't know what, the pluses and minuses of that are. I'm sure that's a tourism thing. Being on a board, a town board in the past, I mean, listen, we always took the position that if we got outside money, whether it was private, whether it was state, whether it was federal, and brought it back home, you're kind of getting back your fair share of pork. I mean, imposing depending on maybe starting off slow, but expanding, town budgets are usually stretched thin and, but if you were able to get state funding, if you're able to get county grants, at least pilot something and see how it works, that's certainly, great idea. The marketing thing, I think you've got plenty of the Fairport Village Merchants Association that, obviously their big event is Canal Days and the Music Fest, but if, the idea is pitched to them, are they willing to get behind it, From a recreation point of view, I mean, I guess my concern would be, expanding the personnel needed to not only maintain the ice, but also, who's gonna run it? I mean, who's gonna rent skates? I mean, you guys are probably winterholics and you have the skates and it sounds like that, but I mean, most families, would probably say, hey, we go skating once or twice, we rent our skates. Who's gonna be available to do that? Things like that. Those are just some of the thoughts off the top of my head to kind of, jot down notes, and I know you're going with the town board, but,
Those are great thoughts, Paul. Those are great, those just to capture, so the hockey versus skating, we have a solution for that, but I'm gonna listen first and then we'll cover them as probably a follow-up email, cover all your suggestions. The junction rink did require maintenance, and that's why it had to be put away, that then, it was expensive to buy a new chiller. So that's the cost of a refrigerated rink versus non-refrigerated rink. Manhattan Square, we need to do some benchmarking there, and who's gonna run it? Just a quick 50 to 60K startup cost compared to $250,000 with a refrigeration rink is 10 to 20K annual maintenance. Is the nut associated with this, $500 or $1,000. But I'll give you more details and follow up on some of those issues.
Do you know roughly the size difference from the junction rate to what this is?
Great question. This is probably, we're proposing about double what the junction was, about double the size. And keep in mind, we're also proposing, shade screen to make certain the sun doesn't ruin the rink, because even with refrigerated rink, you don't have shade screen, we done, so. We're proposing countermeasures and insulation to make certain the connects.
I remember the junction one more vaguely, other than I thought it was small or smaller.
Right.
So compared to like, it's the one, ice rink here.
That was
That's pretty good, sorry, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so
How did that compare to this one?
typical skating rink or hockey rink, NHL hockey rink, Sabres, Thomas Creek, across the arena, 200 by 85. 285, the junction I think was 40 by 80. We're talking about 112 by 80, 2 tennis courts. So about 60% of a full-size hockey rink is what we're suggesting. It fits nicely in the tennis court. Well, low budget, easy startup as opposed to asking for $500,000 or $250,000.
Just one note on who's gonna run it, just so, I spoke with Grease and Webster, who both maintain and operate these. Grease has a staff there at all times, and they do actually free rentals, I believe. They had all these skates donated to them. They charge $1 for non-residents, but they don't monitor that at all, but they do staff it. Webster
We have this fat at all times.
just people observe it. And I think probably managing the rentals, even though they're no cost. Webster does
No, but to
not,
have some there, like what time of,
what time of day?
like what hours of operation?
I think they were afternoons till like 8 or 9. Webster doesn't staff it at all. So they have a warming hunt, and I guess people have just dropped off skates that they no longer use, and people can use them. So there could be a potential option where it's not managed unless we're doing.
Are
some
those
sort of
two natural lakes?
transactions. Yes. Webster is a bit smaller than Greece. Greece is pretty large itself.
Any other one? Comments?
I think I'm gonna bit too about the downtown festival and how could we compare with that? I mean, would it be better because people locally in Fairport are like, I don't want to drive down to the city, like this is better for me, it's around the corner, or would it be, why would I go there when I have the option of the city? I also concerned because I don't know about like the upkeep of tennis courts and like, is there damage to the tennis courts from using it like a skate rink? And then are we looking at refinishing skate, you know, like I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know what that entails.
So, on the Manhattan, are you, with your first point, would people consider coming to a festival in Fairport instead of going to Manhattan Square, is that what you're saying?
Because like I don't people very often, I definitely don't people in the cold, and I don't people in the cold.
Did you say you don't people?
Yeah, I've done a lot.
People's a verb in this country.
And I definitely, like, if I don't people in the best of times, I'm probably not gonna people in the cold. So if my kids wanna go, I'm probably gonna say, let's go to Fairport. You know, 'cause it's where we live versus if they're on their own device, you know, their own decision, they're going down.
I'm with James, so just understand, so you're peopling right now.
You know what? It's
This is a commitment to people.
This
Like,
is
you
a commitment
plan these and-
people all
I
day,
get it.
and then I come here, so this is a choice, and it's not snowing in here.
New York, I don't know, off the top of my head, what are the dates for the, downtown?
It's like a whole month.
It's just-
It's primarily.
Yeah, I think it's something like 1st of December till January 1st.
Yep.
I think it's.
But they have vendors and everything there.
It's huge. Like I mean, we can't do that, but I do think that. I mean, unfortunately, we have a dangerous component in the city, and I think that a lot of people might choose Fairport over. I know that I'm not going down to the city, but yeah, I would choose Fairport over, and I am
Well, that's,
aging, but I'm
that's
fairly
been,
young.
that's been the
like,
trend with the
Yeah,
downtown, bar
Yeah.
and whatnot, I mean, it's kind of been pretty apparent that, Fairport's been the place to go for at college age now, it's shifted.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly it's the trend, and just to be clear, we would not, I mean, we could do something over the holidays, don't get me wrong, but in terms of ideal conditions for a winter carnival or festival, you want to be targeting late January, mid-February, late January, worst case, mid-February, mid-January to mid-February is your window, your best window of opportunity to maximize building snowmen, building ice castles, skating. This Christmas, no good.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be competing with Manhattan Square over the holiday season, we'd be recommending a carnival in the January, February timeframe, just to be clear on that. And on the tennis court issue, it's a great point you're on, Amy. There's a 2-page document embedded in this presentation that explains how we preserve the tennis court to ensure there's no damage in the future.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. My question that you kind of just answered was, were you gonna kind of try and do, I'm thinking of like the New York City Holiday Village where they have all of the vendors, kind of similar to Canal Days, but more winter, right? Like you go there and maybe get some like gifts and stuff for people that are homemades, kind of do that type of thing. But it sounds like maybe it's more geared towards activities and not really like the sale of like individualized crafts and things like that.
Well, the interesting thing about it is we're still building that vision together, so that's an open-ended question. Do we just build it around sledding and fun winter activities and throwing, hatchets like they were doing in Merrimack Lake? Or do we build it around vendor activities? And, I would argue it's a combination of all the above is open game.
Yeah.
Whatever the go forward planning team decides makes sense, whatever's gonna bring people in the truck, but I think it's probably a combination of both, to your point. you know, vendors and knickknacks and cool things, but.
That's what they do in the village in the winter.
Yeah, they have like, I mean,
Yeah,
like
like
there's
hot malts.
igloos and stuff like that, like
Yeah,
that's a
hot
huge
malt
thing.
cider and
Yep,
iron smoke whiskey and.
yeah, so if there was like a
That's
way to
my kind of-
incorporate kind of like Fairport restaurants and things and stuff like that, that'd be kind of nice. Where you can like rent out the igloo,
Joe and I
and
both
we get revenue from it kind of, so.
I might people for some whiskey.
Oh, you people for some whiskey?
People
got
for
it.
some whiskey.
Oh, but these people.
Now,
Yeah.
and for you, we get you like a transparent little igloo, so you only have the first one, not the.
Yeah.
Like it.
And we go,
I mean, I would never skate because I'd probably end up in traction, but, a break in the hip. But that would be a place that I'd wanna go. I mean, just if you had the vendors there and the food trucks and all that, just to people watch, but I think we need something like that because it is really. There is nothing going on in the winter,
So.
except for that. I don't know how long that was set up, but my husband and I went to Ricky's for breakfast and we went and got some iron smoke whiskey.
Oh, when the canal circuit was going on?
It was, I don't know what it was, it's winter,
Oh.
but they were roasting chestnuts, they had,
I think it's all home for the holidays, isn't it?
yeah, it's in between like Ricky's and.
That's the one that Bridge Lane West.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also the snow sculpture.
But where is that?
That's in the winter, I mean, it's gotta be in January, February.
But is it a whole event?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. And on the board 25 years, I don't get into that. That's start reading.
Jim, you got any comment?
Yeah. I spent 42 years on Potter. And so while my kids were growing up and everything, that was certainly a great attraction. There were two rinks actually. So they did have separation between the hockey
And hockey and skating, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then it got warmer. And it got warmer. There was one year where they put up the boards and never opened. And that's probably in 80 something. And that's kind of when I was on the IDA board and we sponsored that we didn't decide or didn't come up with the idea of the refrigerator ring, but we did pay for part of it. And it's because actually, I think even the town decided we can't spend the time and effort maintaining this thing if it's not even gonna get cold enough. So I guess, part of what I'm thinking about is, okay, what caused us to not be able to do that anymore? And also the same with the pond hockey, because that was very popular for 2 years, maybe 3. I don't know. And then it disappeared, and I don't know if that was, they couldn't guarantee the ice for that particular time that that's put on, or what the problem was there. I mean, that all seems to come into, at least the expansion of what you're saying about the beginning. Seems like it's a manageable first step, for sure. Because I know, and people certainly love having that available, sure.
So you bring some great points up, Jim. So, 42 years on Powder Car. And let's face it, climate change is real, right? However, I will tell you, with 28 years of having backyard ice, last year was the best year in a long time, 70 skating days, and I'd say the worst year in 28 years was 10 skating days. So you're talking about a window of opportunity of hardcore skating of, 30 days to 70 days is probably the planning horizon. A terrible winter is gonna be a bust, you might have 10 to 15. But keep in mind, that's skating. There's other things you can do and have fun. Doesn't have to be perfect ice to play broom ball. Doesn't have to be perfect ice to play boot hockey. Doesn't have to be perfect ice to have an event walking around on soft ice. So you just want to set the record straight. The junction, The reason why the junction went south is they need to replace the chiller, and that wasn't in the budget, that wasn't in the budget. And the pond hockey found more favorable residents at Carrie Lake. The organizer of the pond hockey tournament wasn't fond, I spoke with him, wasn't fond of dealing with the politics of municipalities and politics in New York State, and canal and all that. So he went to a more fertile ground in Carrie Lake, but I will tell you, this, the canal is so much more attractive to anybody to be on. And the one thing that people don't understand about natural ice, it's easier to freeze ice from the top than it is from the bottom. Right, you wait for canals to freeze or lakes to freeze, it takes forever. We could absolutely build ice on the canal by adding water to the top and have ice much faster. Get back to the point, knowledge, expertise, and experience of how to make ice is a key differentiator for what we're talking, thanks to Art and thanks to the experience I've learned the hard way. You've got the 18 that's gonna maximize outdoor ice. I don't want to suggest it's gonna be perfect, but if you want maximum utilization of outdoor ice, I'm very confident that Art and I is gonna deliver the best possible utilization. Should you-
Even some of the things that we didn't have in Potter Park, but Brian does now, sunshades.
Yeah.
And the fact is, there's a fair amount of shade, natural shade. Potter Park had no natural shade, so when the sun hit, ice was gone. And so there's a lot more natural ability of Parrington Park with the sun shades. That's great, that's something that wasn't there. One of the other things I think that happened at Potter's, the boards had to be rebuilt. My dad built those boards. But, you know, he probably voluntarily built those boards. There wasn't money to do stuff like that. And to be honest with you, there wasn't another guy like my dad that would step up and put the hours. And so you do have that, it's the one glitch, when you talk about a technical glitch, there's Mother Nature, that's one glitch. Everything else is not a problem. There aren't any technical glitches except Mother Nature. And there's some other things that you, Brian, and I, the one there started discussing, and they sit there and see this. Ideas come to my head. My organization owns the Bob's Cross, which is basically hockey. I bought it through the Ralph Wilson Foundation, it's up at School 33. And also, just to add one more thing about the city and airport, I don't consider them, they're two different markets. I don't consider that. There's a few people that will, people in both the city and airport, but most people choose. And we don't have any. So, but I have talked to Brian about this. I would ask possibly for more space where you could run your ice. My boards physically only work in warmer weather. For lacrosse, for hockey has a different resin, a different thickness, so they wouldn't work. But if I set those up on another tennis court to allow for street hockey, room ball, everything done on feet, don't put any water on there. And then that allows Brian and your group to try and maintain the best ice and never let anybody on it unless it's great ice. That's the other thing. Once you wreck ice, it's really hard to get it back. Okay, so you want to keep it great, but if you had something on the side that said, we always can have an activity down there. And then when we are fortunate enough to have the great winters, so you could actually have a full separate place with no ice on it at all.
Put that in perspective, it's a great potential addition and or replacement, right? We're talking 50 to 60K startup costs, right? The boards is probably 20 of them, 15 or 20 of them. So when Art is suggesting, he could gift his boards and it could be a year round.
Well,
it could be potentially year round.
I use it in the summer, I use it all through the summer and fall, but it's a portable sort of erector set that I set up and take down, and transport in a giant U-Haul truck. I know how to do this, and I can literally put it up and down. And go up in 4 hours with the right group and down in 4 hours, so, but that's something potentially, and I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm a 501c3 for a city organization that I've grown myself. I would ask for some rental costs. It would be minimal.
So we have lots of options to deal with the skating / hockey point that was brought up. Other feedback, sorry, we're taking more than
I
our.
don't know, it's like, listen, I love, the thing I love most was the winter festival. Right, I had divisions of, the canal hockey tournament, right? And I only, poke fun at stuff because I love the, like, when you kind of put the whiskey and the transparent igloos or whatever, all that stuff's good. But sort of, I'm gonna get rapid fire a whole bunch of stuff, so take it all in and then see. And I am not speaking either for this board or the town board. Our rules are very specifically defined, we do not speak for the town board. They will disavow most of what we say. Yes, that's part of the beauty. And obviously we went through the evolution, to Jim's point, right? From a institutional memory standpoint, Potter Park, you know, at the time, it dwindled because of the number of days and the maintenance required and things like that. And then we had the next opportunity with the village. And that became also sort of a maintenance issue, and then as you sort of talked about the children as well. So I do think that's a hurdle to get over at some point, because I don't think our weather's gotten better than it was, except for maybe, like you said, the last year. I haven't used my snow blower in 3 years.
Right.
Thanks.
Actually, that's a great thing
It's
to do
really
that.
good to throw.
No, actually, it's not.
I quit though, well, I quit though. But I heard a lot of interesting stuff about how to create and maintain it, things like that. So, some of my questions would be, or I sort of think that if we did this, we would want to try and make it as a service to the community, right? So minimal fees, right? So then that equation becomes, you know, little to no revenue and costs, right? And I haven't asked them before this meeting, but Chris, do you, in your budget, have a lot of excess personnel capacity that we don't know about in the winter time?
I think I do not.
Alright. So there'd be incremental costs, you have a preliminary stuff, so that's something to be figured out. And the thing that you guys have going for you is you, right? And your institution, what I'll call institutional knowledge of what this takes. Tell me a little bit more about, like, village sports was only a few years, right? So, you know, why was that so short, relatively short-lived? Can this be we think about a public service, if you went fully private, and there's sort of the private public, something, there's a spectrum in between.
Right.
So how did village sports deal with that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So Sarah and I decided to downsize and move from Silver Glen to Colstrip. And so now what do we do with the spring? And I didn't know Glenn Collins well, but Glenn Collins is the owner of Village Sports, the Collins family. So it's like, what am I gonna do with this rink? So I called Glenn, and long story short, we signed a partnership agreement where he would lease me a 5-year lease, the space below the railroad tracks there where the picture of the rink was. And I would operate it as a service to the community. So I hired some kids and parents to run it, maintain it. I obviously maintained the ice and set the boards up and level off brought in millings to level it off, a lot of donations. Power and Construction Group, Tom Siebert, the executive at Power and Construction Group, was kind of one of the hockey dad to bring his construction crew over and erect 8 telephone poles on the property, and a $50,000 expense turned into a $3,000 expense. So we're able to get it up and running in literally 90 days. And there's a video in there about how we got up and running in 90 days. But and we operated it for 2 years until Glenn Collins was forced to subdivide his property. I suspect it was due to some financial challenges. Subdivide his property, and he sold off that the property that he leased to me to, now the underpass, it was Shooters wanted a bigger they wanted a bigger parking lot. So they bought that subdivided lot, and Glenn and I agreed to dissolve it, and he reimbursed me for some of the investments I made in the infrastructure, et cetera. So then we had nowhere to put the rink, and then it ended up in my backyard, so that's what happened there. That wasn't a weather situation. I think we're hearing that is the trend is a losing cause because of weather, I think is the trend we're hearing, right? I want to be perfectly honest, weather is a challenge, don't get me wrong. But there's a report out there, there's a place called Rink Watch in Canada. You can imagine Canada spends a lot of time spending, monitoring backyard rinks and outdoor rinks. So there's a nonprofit organization on Laurier University called Rink Watch. And they monitor ice conditions throughout Canada and North America. Anybody that has a rink reports their ice conditions. And they published a report saying actually, at least for the next several years, now that El Nino is behind us, that the weather forecast is actually improving for the last several years. And last year was a perfect example, so who knows? Who knows, is Mother Nature gonna get better or worse? But a bad first year would be a problem for all of us, right? We don't want, a bad first year of weather would be, let's face it, someone mentioned the Zoom meeting, it would be a bummer. It would be a bummer, so make no mistake, long-term refrigeration is the answer. No question, refrigeration is the answer, and as Mark mentioned, there's ways to mitigate with refrigeration, there's plenty of places, and Buffalo's perfectly successful with lots of refrigeration now, at now side, right? So we have the climate for refrigerated rinks. The junction wasn't equipped with the right infrastructure around it, the shade, as Art mentioned, it's the sunscreen, is the key thing.
Can I just say that it always makes me laugh when you guys talk about sunshades? Because, you're my wife's son, we don't get sun from October to April, so. It's a weird thing.
People that own rinks, they find that sun, they hate that sun, there's not a lot, but when it comes, it's a killer.
Other thing I'd like to, is I guarantee you, there's nobody here, or very few people in Fairport that skated 7 days except me. I lived there. 3, 4, I mean, you guys aren't in the business of, not in the business of memories. But 3, 4 times a year, someone goes to skate, they have that memory for the rest of their life. And that's what we saw on the Facebook. You saw some of the stuff we posted, everybody's talked about Potter Park. I guarantee you that they only went there 3 to 4 times in a year. That's it. And they have that memory for the rest of their life. So.
Going back
Did
to
that answer your question,
a
Alan?
little bit, yeah, going back to the village sports. What was run there? Like, how did it run, like, did it make money? Did it not lose money? What was the?
I was doing it as a favor to the community. I was trying to reimburse some of the costs. I think, 3 or 4,000 in annual winter revenue to cover the costs. I wasn't there to make money. I'm addicted to teaching kids how to skate. And bringing accessible ice to kids, as Art mentioned, and Sarah and Nikki, I would invite you to comment because you guys have been quiet, but there's no one closer to the memories that have been created in our backyard than the two of you. It's magic. And you talk to any player, does anybody watch Stanley Cup playoffs?
Oh, yeah.
You ask any NHL player, what is their favorite memory growing up, and I guarantee 9 out of 10 are gonna tell you skating in the backyard, skating on a canal, skating on a pond. It's magic. It's addictive. Sarah, Nikki?
Well, I'm remembering, many an evening, Fridays and Saturdays at the village sports. When you were there, because they would have open skate advertised up at the village sports, but then they would say, oh, you can do it outside of the play. So what normally would be an indoor, skating, open skate would be come down, and they could come down and skate outside, which they loved. And they're bringing the skates, they brought their skates down from village sports, that's where they got them. So that was really kind of a community just open to anybody. It wasn't hockey, it wasn't.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Sharon. What was fascinating, we obviously would connect the indoor rink, we had mats all the way downhill, down to the outdoor rink, and obviously people flooded outside. We had speakers, and obviously, I haven't gotten to all the amenities, but you gotta have music, you gotta have microphone, it's fun, it's entertainment. And that's what happened, the Friday, Saturday nights, they would do the skating, and people would love coming back and forth. They wanted, they wanted to be inside and go buy a hot chocolate, it'd be warm. They want to be outside and see the stars, they come outside.
No, figure skates and hockey skates.
Right.
Hockey skates would prefer, but, whatever skates they had, they brought their own. It was fun. It was really kind of the younger, out of their high school type age. A lot of that age came at that time, as I remember.
Just a couple other points. So I think about location and you were very thoughtful about Barrington Park and I agree with it for a lot of reasons. But when you start talking about the Winter Festival or the canal hockey, you mentioned a few other things like down by the village. So I mean, I think multiple location potential, right? Especially if you start with a festival or something like that.
Yeah.
If I think about down where the kayaks are, you know,
Yeah,
by
yeah,
the brick
yeah,
house.
yeah.
And then, cause you also have, I can't picture it 100%, but like the space behind TJ Ryan's and his new TJ Chicken or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
that's an open
Right,
area.
right.
You know, whether it's a rink there or, you know, if that precedes canal hockey feeds into that, we're Barrington Park. But, I mean, that's a location where you have more ability to leverage merchants,
Mhm.
right, for that kind of stuff. I'm just wondering. And I'm not pressuring you guys for an answer, because I don't think you were expecting this, but like, where you guys are, I mean. Is this a for-profit opportunity that, or like with a pseudo public-private? I don't mean like you wanna make a lot of money, but it can sustain itself. That type of enterprise.
If it had to sustain itself, it could. I don't know if I wanna spend that much time doing it because, you know. Possibly. But
And not necessarily, maybe it's for just, knowledge transfer, so that, you know, you get, when we talk about with Jim all the time versus next generation of, you know, Crescent Trail people, right?
Right.
So what's the next generation of folks that you could do employ? And again, when I say for profit, I'm not saying it's gotta make a gazillion dollars, I'm saying sustainable where it's a quasi public-private type thing, or not for profit, but everyone part, so that it sustains itself. And I don't know if it's, you do that at a winter festival that builds to something else like that over time. I'm trying to figure out what the right feeder into one to the other is, because I think you, besides the weather, I think you hit on a lot of other what people would be concerned about is you don't want your year one to be a big whiff. Right.
we had some of these discussions with Karen and Jeff. If it needed to make money, we can engineer it to make money. Is it gonna be a windfall? No. But, you know, especially
I mean, making
if it
money,
needed to make money for the
making
town.
money from my perspective, or I think a town perspective, is that it's not an increment to the tax base or to the tax appropriation. It's big, so break even.
If it needed to break even, it could break even. We had some of those discussions because there's rental opportunity, party opportunity, especially with the facility that's there now.
I don't mean either, everyone donates the time, because everyone should be fairly.
Yeah.
You know, reasonably compensated.
Because it could, you know, between birthday parties and hockey teams and stuff like that, personally, I think it'd be easy to break even, but I love your idea. Al, about closer to the merchants, the kayak area there, so I'll see your idea and raise you a little bit, and imagine connecting that kayak area all the way to the current skate park, where the canal trail is, the bike trail on the other side of the canal. Imagine that being a refrigerated ribbon from the village of Fairpark all the way to the skate park. That
I
would
mean, I already in my head already started thinking about taking out trees off this at Iron Smoke.
I mean, it would be unbelievable. That would take the Toledo thing to a whole, imagine skating from the skate park into the village along the canal. And a refrigerated path, it would be cool as hell.
I mean, I don't remember, I mean, the group that went to the other, that isn't doing canal hockey anymore because they went to the lake.
Yeah.
Because of having to deal with everybody.
Yeah.
I personally haven't done with that, I see these guys deal with that, but to me, if it's quasi, public, private, it's town, village, canal corp, which brings in the New York State. You know. I wouldn't wanna leave that team, but sure, but that to me is, and like merchants associations, that's one of the ways I think this can really be, you know, exciting. I mean, you look at Music Fest, right, or Fairport Music Fest. You you know, that started at like $12,000 the first year, something like that, now they just make up the numbers. Like that they give to the children, I mean, order of magnitude, but the last few digits are always the next year's concert day. It's like when they present the
Oh,
child.
really?
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't-
I mean, it's like order of magnitude, right, and then they round up or down to get to like the next thing, they just do that. But you look at Jazz Fest downtown, that started really small. So, yeah.
Andy McDermott is a good friend and
Yeah.
advisor on this as well, obviously suggesting you're on the right vision. Same thing, it could start small and be as big as that or bigger.
And to have an opposite side of the coin, you have canal days, and you have, you know, however you wanna coin whatever that is, that would be very cool.
Sounds like we could sign you up for the core planning team going forward.
You don't know, these
We
guys.
need- we need those great ideas.
These guys are gonna be working 65 hours a week, right?
Say that again?
These guys have to be working 65 hours.
I will also say that the location with the lights, I mean.
Yeah.
You know, when you travel that skate park as it exists right now, now it's light till almost 9 o'clock. And you don't notice it that much, but it's dark at 5, so you throw those lights on. That's why he asked that first question. Have you ever traveled down 250 and you saw a deer going? I saw it salivating every single time I jumped down, because I saw lights and a hockey rink. I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world, alright? And that's what you would have at Powder Park, that amount of traffic, everybody going by, going, wow, lights up, people skating. It's a great location. I'm a huge fan of Potter Park, and I know people are gonna say,
We thought about that.
why do I have a Potter Park? This is actually a better location.
I guess we'll get another location.
I'm sure Jim doesn't want people
Yeah.
convert you to Potter.
Which
Oh,
one?
no, I bet, so that's, they did it great.
We make it animal themed and put it at, Egypt Park.
Animal theme and eat. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Make the pig fan, make the pig national, a nice one.
Lots of construction going on there.
Well, they're gonna do a pig pasture on, like, next to Egypt Park on 31. I didn't see that cleared out.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
That's gonna be a pig pasture. That's very low. It's got natural water.
Just a couple of thoughts of what our internal discussions have led to. And a lot of it is much of what the advisory board has shared.
Yeah.
The biggest question is how many days we'll be able to be open, and I have no doubt. We could maximize that with both your experience, but that's still a big question to us and some of our research. It has been with Greece and Webster. I'm meeting with Irondequoit next week to get some information. They used to have a break, but no longer, as to why they closed. Just some quick facts. This year, Greece, which is a little bit larger, I believe, was open about 6 weeks. Webster was open about 2 months. So again, I would say those are positive. The year before, not quite as great. Greece was open for 3 hours and Webster was open for 3 days. Now, I don't know if they have the same strategies that you folks use. In fact, I can tell you definitively, Webster does not. They flood the rink, walk away, and hope for the best. Greece sounds like it's pretty intentional, where they staff some guys, laborers overnight, pour a little bit, let it freeze, pour a little bit more. I don't know what their sun protection is. I guess probably none. So that's something we still need to work through and understand a little bit more. What's our operational plan? Who's gonna be physically out there doing the flooding? We don't have the flexibility with our parks staff, even over the winter months, they're tasked with a lot of different things, so that would be additional staff.
Yeah.
Which would just mean we need to figure out a way to supplement that, and I don't think. Talking to the supervisor, I certainly don't think his philosophical approach would be to charge for anything. It would be a service, as Al mentioned. So we just have to be creative about how we find some of that revenue to offset that, whether it's sponsorships or whatever, or volunteer, whatever it might be. So those are really the two big hurdles for us as the department, which are things that many of you folks talked about too, so. I just want to be transparent and upfront about where we stand right now.
And just to frame that hurdle, as I'm sure with Jeff, our estimate is that in labor hours, 500 to 1,000 to maintain the facility from December through March. Probably set it up to Thanksgiving, take it down, end of March, early April. 500 to 1,000 labor hours, and it's, $10,000 to $20,000 total, depending on that. and 2,000 is for a new line every year. So that's the labor component. Worst case, if the Parks and Rec.
I'm sorry, 500 to 1,000 to maintain, not to do.
500 to 1,000 hours just to maintain it. The build is a couple of days, couple of days setup. That could be done with, volunteer staff, friends and neighbors, volunteer staff. Ultimately, to be sustainable, we want to transfer the knowledge to Parks and Rec would be the ideal solution. But worst case, we would partner together and help them get up and running, but the nut that Jeff is on, which is legit, is your staff gonna be able to maintain it? So the fallback we've said is if it can't be done, we would harness the volunteer community. Those 300 families that I mentioned, that have supported us and Parks, dear friend. Worst case, we'd rather the volunteer troops, we wanna do that, no, but we could, especially for year one. Year one, we have to try and make it successful, because we would not want year one to fail. The only other thing I would say about the weather, I guarantee you, people aren't using shade screen. In general, aren't using shade screen, that's a new innovation. And the other new innovation that I stumbled across 10 years ago was insulation. Ultimately, what happens is breaks, you get thaws. You get thaws, and then how many times over the February break, school break, you get 3 days of 40 degrees? Well, I happened to stumble across Reflectix company insulation that I laid it on the rink, and it's amazing. Instead of losing 3 inches of ice, I lose a ½ inch of ice. So nobody uses installation, because I'm actually working with an insulation company. And I've surveyed the worldwide backyard user community to find out is anybody using insulation, and almost nobody's using it.
Why don't you get Yeti to brand you? It'll stay
Well-
there for 3 minutes.
Maybe that's a good idea, yeah. So, I mean, that's another countermeasure that I guarantee no one is doing, that we roll out on top of the rink during the thaws, so we can snap it back faster. All you need is 120-degree night, and you're back up and running, if but you get 3 or 4 days in warm weather and sun, you're kind of screwed, it's much longer recovery time. So I don't want to oversell it, but I will tell you that between Art and I, we've got a lot of experience on how to optimize maximum skating days, and with no people would be as committed as the volunteer team we bring to your team to make certain year one was successful. Can we guarantee 70 skating days? Absolutely not. Could we guarantee 10 or 20? Probably,
How do you, I'm just thinking about, having it lit, but also having the screen, the shade. How do you, it seems like the lights are higher than,
the lights are above the shade screen. The shade screen would be above the, connected to the telephone poles that hold the lights. The shade screen would be below the light level. Because you're just getting the shade screen high enough to catch the sun. And as Art mentioned, the good news about the skate park, you already got trees east of the skate parks. There's already trees there, there's some natural shade, which most people don't get. But we want to put shade screen on the east and shade screen on the south. So when that sun goes from the morning to the afternoon, we got shade screen that goes east-west, and we got shade screen that goes north-south, like a curtain, like maybe seen our backyard, we got a shade screen that just slide a curtain, big curtain. And it's a game changer. It allows people to skate when it's, when the sun is beaming, the kids can skate.
yeah.
Without the shade screen, they don't skate. Pardon me?
I was thinking of it as over the top, but in January and February, you don't need that, you need it.
Sometimes that high in the sky, exactly, yeah, I had to do I won't get into the details, trying to figure out the math and how high they have to go. So,
All right, anything else, anybody? Questions, comments? Mr. Nutty, anything else?
Well, I think that's it. Appreciate your time as always and ideas. Yeah, so I guess what we'll task this board with is creating some comments and ideas and opinions to share with the town board. Hopefully in advance of the workshop, so the town board could see what the advisory board's thoughts are before then. We might not be able to do it before the workshop, but either way, this board will share with the town board some of their feedback.
great. So what we'll do is we'll capture, we got some AI capture, we'll make sure we answer the questions and the points that were brought up, so you have that, then you can combine that. On behalf of the core planning team, thanks to the core planning team, and thanks to you folks, Jeff in particular, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris, appreciate your time as well.
So this is
Thank you.
a public meeting, but I will ask if you guys can hightail it out of here, because
Yep.
we're just trying to get quick.